Dei Lynam from Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia, CSNPhilly.com. Covers the 76ers. She has for a long, long time, and she joins us now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Dee. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well. Always good to catch up. I say a long, long time. How long has it been? How long have you been covering the 76ers, and how long has your family been around this organization?
Are you serious? Well, for me, I've been covering them since '97, and 97. For my dad, that was the late '80s, and then he left for a little while and did other jobs and came back, obviously, with Mo Chief. So I don't know how many years is that. Too many.
A while. We'll keep it at that. 97. So in other words, very plugged in. You know this team very well, this organization very well. Are you confident then in that the 76ers or somebody has alerted Ben Simmons? Was him eating a cheesesteak on national television enough for you to feel confident that they will take him tonight?
I think they knew a while ago. I don't think this is any revelation that's happened in the last week. I think that for most people and scouts around the league, that he's a unique talent that you just can't take the chance of not trying. And I think that the things that you know about a Brandon Ingram, he's going to be a nice player, but that Ben has a chance to be somebody special.
Yeah, and when this process started a couple of years ago, it was to try to find a superstar. In your opinion, landing this number one pick and it being Ben Simmons, does that qualify enough to say, you know what, even if you didn't like what happened or did like what happened, you got the hinky side, you got the anti-hinky side, is getting Ben Simmons and putting him on this roster fulfilling enough for everybody?
Well, I think you're going to come to forget, more and more what happened leading up to that as years go by, if in fact he is the franchise player that people think he can be. Do I ever think that tanking to the extreme that they did is the right thing? Nobody operated within rules that are currently in place and may not always be in place moving forward, because like I've said to a number of people, if half the league did that, you'd have half the number of teams, because you have to be competitive to stay as a league. So he was extreme, meaning Sam, but he pushed an envelope that was there to be pushed. And will they, can Ben be the answer? I think he has a chance for sure. He can't do it by himself. I mean, you need to surround him with people, and I've said that, and I've had a number of conversations today. When Kevin Durant came into the league, he couldn't do it by himself. He and Russell couldn't even just do it by themselves. So Kyrie, he needs somebody. There's a lot of talented guys in the league, but yet you need more than one.
Dei Lynam is with us. The 76ers have the number one overall pick. They also have 24 and 26, but their name is mentioned in just about every conversation the rest of the day here. Boston, we're here, Houston, now New Orleans' name is coming into the mix. Are they determined to grab another player in the top 5 of this draft? Well,
they would like to. But I think the league knows that they are very interested in doing that, and I think the league knows that they have an abundance at the big man position and that they desperately need perimeter help, whether it's point guard or shooting guard, and that they certainly have interest in jumping up to that. So, can they get what they want? I mean, I actually at this point would be surprised if the Celtics thing went through. I just don't see Danny giving up on that pick right now. And I think, there's a lot of posturing that goes on, and see how far you can push another team to get what you want and who wants it more. That's a lot of what happens right now. But I do think that's what their interest is for sure.
How much interest do they have in moving Okafor or one over the other? Anybody rank higher on the list for them? They don't care, whatever the best offer is, or do they have a preference of which one of those guys they would like to keep tonight if it comes down to moving one of those two?
Well, again,
and are they the two most sought after guys on that roster? I mean, everyone just keeps saying those two because they didn't play well together. But is there somebody else? Is there a wild card that Saric, would he be in the mix? So I mean, I'm assuming they're the two guys that everybody would be calling them about, though.
Yeah, and Okafor will get you the greatest in return in terms of a player. For instance, if Danny Ainge wants Nerlens for that number 3 pick, he's going to demand something else. And that's not to say I actually think Nerlens is the better fit for both Boston and Philadelphia in terms of the way they are constructed and how the league is played now. But, they can push that envelope because people look and say, well, he's not an offensive player. Okafor is, flat out can score in the low post. So for some reason, we value that as higher than the fact that I think he sometimes, or not sometimes, right now at this stage in his career, is a defensive, liability at times, and certainly is not a strong rebounder. So I would say that, in my opinion, the Sixers would have an idea in their head of who they want to be moving forward, and I think it is a team that will push the pace. I think when you have a guy like Ben Simmons, you're already saying we want to get out and run because that's what the guy does, and he's very, very good at it. So in that instance, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Nerlens would then be the better fit in terms of running. But if you get a better deal for Nerlens, then figure it out down the road.
So, Dee, if you make the deal with Boston for number 3, who would you take with that number 3 pick? Who, in your mind, fits best with Simmons and Embiid?
Well, for me personally, I think you got to surround Simmons with shooting. However, if having the best player, and that for me would be Jamal Murray. If you want the third best player in the draft, it's Chris Dunn. Murray doesn't bring you the same defense that Dunn does. And obviously Dunn isn't as good an outside shooter, but he is a scorer, and he's pretty seasoned. And the fact that he is good defensively, that's fine. And I think, at first I think that Simmons will have the ball in his hands a lot. But just like LeBron has the ball in his hands a lot, doesn't mean you don't have a point on the floor as well. I mean, I think you're going to match, or Simmons will be matched up against, somebody else's 4 or maybe somebody else's small forward. But he will have the ball in his hands. So I would say, depending on how you view it, if you just understand that Simmons needs shooters around him, personally I would go with Murray. But if you want the next best player in the draft and he's going to complement Simmons all around, then you go Dunn.
And it seems to us, at least to Mike and I, that Dunn isn't maybe a fit with Simmons. So if you view then as a point guard or point forward, do you concur?
I concur. The only thing is that I felt too strongly about that. And then when I go and I look at other people who have players like Simmons, not that there's a ton of them out there, but it doesn't take away from, if both those guys are good players, and they are, then, I hear what you're saying, but if the value of Dunn is greater, then I would give it a chance, unless you think he can't make an outside shot at all.
Yeah, and, Pete's point about Ben Simmons, some people have suggested just play him at the point, 6'10", 240, let him be the point guard. He has said, look, I'm a kind of a – because he's been asked, hey, how do you think you fit in with the Sixers bigs? And he said, don't lump me in with those guys. My game's way different. I'm a point forward. I can do much more, not a knock on those guys, but he's just saying I'm not a low post kind of power forward that some people would say, hey, I'm better at the 4. So how do you, Dee, think Ben Simmons fits best in today's NBA, that we've heard the word positionless league so much over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I did talk to the guy, one of the assistant, actually the associate head coach at LSU, who was a long time in the NBA, Brendan Sir. And Brendan, two things that he called Ben a generational player and a non-position player. He could play all 5 positions. And he also would say, they at LSU made a sacrifice this year to play him as a point guard, and that a lot of teams maybe wouldn't have been willing as a coach to do that, but they did it to develop the guy. And he thinks his skills are off the charts. And Brendan's been around the NBA for 36 years. He came into the NBA when Magic and Bird came in. And he thinks that this past year Ben could have played and started on any of the 30 NBA teams, including the champion Golden State Warriors.
How about that?
So then, in your mind, D, is Brett Brown willing to play him at the point guard position like LSU did?
Well, and then I go back and Brendan says that. He wasn't exclusively. I mean, they did have a guy on their team that was a point guard who did play, but they found ways to play, it became more of a system, so to speak. So, yeah, I think that's exactly what will happen. I think he will dominate the ball. I think he wants to dominate the ball. My one question to Brendan was, okay, I get that he can grab it off the rim and get you in transition. I said, but can he run an offense if you're forced to be in the half court, if you have good teams that have good transition defense, can he run an offense in the half court, which he absolutely believes he can. And he's like, if he has a Porzingis on him because, you're going against another, 4, he's like, he'll take him off the dribble. And if you have a smaller guard on him, go post in. That's what you would do in the half court. So, and if you're going to post him against the smaller guy, that's what I'm saying. You do need somebody else who's a decent ball handler. Does he have to be a combo guard? Can he be a combo guard? Sure. It doesn't have to be, the exclusive, typical point guard, I don't think it has to be that, but he's got to have a decent ball handle if he's going to try to post him every now and then.
We've heard a lot about Philadelphia and Boston. It seems like that one's been going on. But there has been a little other, Houston over here. New Orleans now seems to be in the mix. Do you think Philadelphia ends up doing something else tonight? I know we kind of asked earlier about, are they determined to? But ultimately, do you think that they just have so many assets that it would just be, bizarre to you that they don't end up doing something else tonight?
No, I think they'll do something else. Now, whether they make a huge splash and get into the top 8, like I said, I know it's their desire, but again, you're not going to sacrifice to not get what you want. And I think there's probably more than one that they are targeting. I don't think it's just the Chris Dunn. I think, those guys, Dunn, Murray, Field, and even the Jaylen Brown. I think all 4 of them are on their board somewhere. And would they be willing to, trade an Okafor for one of those picks if they're still on the board? I could see that.
Okafor's name keeps coming up a lot, and as we mentioned, Noel's does as well. What is, last time you were on, D, we talked about Saric, and, we know the story that if he comes, he's going to lose a lot of money here. Does he factor in at all tonight? I mean, do they worry about his decision at all?
I think he's probably the least of the things that you will concern yourself with tonight. And I think they probably, more than they lead on, have an idea of what that is going to be come, either before July 17th or on July 17th. So I don't think he's a factor tonight. I really don't.
How much of a factor this season is Embiid? And the last time you were on, you say, wait, I want to hear more. He's been clear for light 5-on-5. I don't know what light 5-on-5 was, but there's going to be 10 men on the floor at one time, and he's going to be one of those 10. That's got to be somewhat encouraging.
I'm trying to, the definition of light 5-on-5, I'm assuming it's like we'll start in the half court, and then we'll
light 5-on-5 is a game with me and Pete on the perimeter. We're barely moving. We're just kind of hanging around the three-point line.
But if you were doing that, wouldn't you just put 5 guys on the floor and not have any defense to start the whole process? So I don't know. But anyhow, I think...
Oh, I could shoot with the hand in my face, D. I could shoot with the hand in my face.
And I could move slowly.
Good for you. I think that he's a huge part of this. And I think behind closed doors this summer that him and Simmons and whoever they somehow gets to be on the perimeter becomes a big thing to see how it works.
Yeah, Embiid now, I don't know if you start to mentally check him into the rotation or the lineup in some aspect, but a Simmons-Embiid duo, picture that for us.
Simmons and Embiid duo. Now, come on, we're talking about Embiid hasn't played in 2 years, but the fact
I know, but we got to get people excited. The doldrums. This has been horrible 3 years. We need some excitement.
199 losses, right?
Believe me, but I will say that Simmons will find Embiid. He will find him, and Embiid does have a jumper. He absolutely can shoot the ball. So, but I'm just saying, don't expect him to be a 20-point scorer this year. I don't think that's fair to him. I don't think it's, a good expectation to have, given he hasn't been on the court for 2 years. But I will say, I think it's a really intriguing duo moving forward. I just want to see them get outside shooting to support those two, incredibly athletic talents.
Well, I asked that question mainly because the last couple of drafts have been filled with taking guys who we perceive don't fit with each other. So if one guy is going to be here is Embiid, now whether he plays or not is another question, but if he's on your roster, the guy you're drafting this year, we actually feel fits, as opposed to last year when they took Okafor and there were questions of, well, how is he going to fit with the roster they already have intact?
Yeah, believe me, if they get a second pick, it's going to stick with Ben and Embiid. Absolutely. I don't have any doubt in my mind about that. And that's why I say if he picks Dunn, meaning I'm putting Colangelo in charge, he believes that that's a good combination on the perimeter.
Right now they have 24 and 26. Do they make those two picks tonight? Because if you have 3 first-round picks, they're all guaranteed guys unless you stash a guy or something to that effect. But do you see them making 3 first-round picks tonight with what they currently have?
No. I think they would want to move either one of those late picks. And like I said, if you can't get up into where they want to get into the draft, then I would say they at least stash one of those guys overseas with somebody that they've, scouted, is a potential, player. But I don't think they really, unless that other pick is higher up, I don't think they have interest in those to keep them.
Well, Dee, here's the big question that I have. Where do you think Sam Hinkie is watching the draft tonight?
That's a great question. You know what? I thought of this. I don't know why I thought of this, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was somewhere near Daryl Morey with Houston, just hanging out like he used to, work and stuff.
Has anyone had any contact with him?
I know that Brett Brown has talked to him.
Yeah. Very interesting. You wonder, even if you, like we said at the beginning, if you're anti what Hickey did or where you are, you look back at all the things they have, and you're just you got to open your eyes a little bit and say, man, the stuff that they put together has put them in a position for tonight to be really exciting. And I guess that's a positive after 3 years of on-the-court negativity. The off-the-court positivity is brimming tonight.
I agree with you. Now, obviously Ben Simmons is a no-brainer once you landed the first overall pick. But I'm curious if people would have had the same enthusiasm that the right things would happen tonight if Sam were still in charge. A guy that we know likes assets and is willing to give up things to get more assets. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he would have given up the number 1 overall pick. But I think that from a basketball sense, there is a trust that the Colangelos will start putting pieces, as you said earlier, that fit together.
And this is to me, okay, Thaddeus Young gets traded today. This is I don't know if this is an indictment on the NBA, the draft. A draft is supposed to help your franchise get better. Thaddeus Young gets traded for the 4th time. His teams always stink. He scores 16 points. He grabs 10 rebounds. He gets drafted in the middle of the first round. You would think if you ended up with a guy of that caliber in the middle of the first round that, boy, you found a guy. What a steal. And it seems like that guy, it's just not a help. It seems that this draft process, unless you're at the top of this draft or get really, really, really lucky, the draft process is just not a help. And when I saw Thaddeus get traded today, all I'm thinking is, man, this guy's been a productive NBA player, and everywhere he goes, they just can't win. And I wonder if that's just a bad state of the NBA in terms of getting better.
Well, in fairness, because it's not just the Thaddeus Young. I mean, the number one
No.
overall pick from 2 years ago, Wiggins got traded before he ever played a minute. So that says something just about the draft. You're getting guys that are young that are drafted on potential, not their proven ability. Now, I mean, the way Indiana's looking at it, they think they just got a steal. So they now have Teague and they have a Thaddeus Young. And in terms of the Nets don't have anything. And the only way they think, because they've also given up so many future draft picks, the only way they believe they could get better is because they now will have $50 million in cap space, and they're hoping that would appeal to two guys who want to be like LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, who want to come in free agency. I mean, that's the only way they can begin to start getting better. And you hope that because of that building, because I know it's not Manhattan, but it's Brooklyn, that maybe there's some appeal there because they have no other choices. Like, they have to swap their first-round pick next year with Boston. I mean, if they're as bad as they were this year, Boston had the great pick coming again.
AD, do you like the Rose to the Knicks deal?
I think it's very good for the Knicks. I understand why Chicago had to get out from under having him. I mean, I don't think he's the Derrick Rose of old, but I think he will breathe new life into Carmelo. And I think he's still a really solid point guard so long as he can stay on the court healthy.
Dei Lynam, Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia, CSN Philly. And the one team, yeah, you just mentioned Boston. That is one team in this league that is in the upper middle echelon right now that I think you can feel has got some opportunities to make a big jump. I think a lot of these other teams in the middle, they got to get really lucky, and I think that's a little bit of a state of the NBA that we are in today. But the draft tonight, Dee, we appreciate all the opinions, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.